Listen, we've got a question here from one of the guests. Sharon Bolden was good enough to put this out, so thank you, Sharon. Let me read this. Currently, the trust in AI, especially Gen AI, is at an all-time low. This is due to transparency of the pipeline process, but also a lack of honoring copyrights, licensing, and other concerns. How are companies who implement chatbots, Gen AI analysis, and other point solutions protecting themselves in this litigious environment?
Top level is if you're using one of the commercial off-the-shelf large language models, that you're not really protected at all. You're just waiting for those legislative cases to filter through. The best way to protect yourself is to actually create your own model or create a small language model. Find a vendor that can build off that initial chatbot system. You don't have to rely on one of these large language models commercially that has built its entire framework off that. So if you have the capability, build up from the ground up. If you use some off the shelf items, understand that at some point in time, that state, federal, and global legislation I was talking about earlier, that's going to come through on this topic as well. And everybody who's on those platforms is going to have to figure out, do we go into that same legislative problem, or do we have a part of our business that is 5%, 30% now dedicated to that process, just to find out that in 6 to 9 months that platform or that functionality vaporizes because it's deemed illegal?
I think one of the more interesting aspects, regardless of what you're trying to protect yourself from, AI is capable of looking at something and integrating it into its decision process. So, I've had AI look at 100-page legal documents, assess exactly, and give it to me in real human language as opposed to legal documents. And what are the decision points? What are the outcomes, and so on. So if you're developing your own, going back to what Barry said, if you're developing your own, you can easily put some type of assessment intelligence into your AI. Say, hey, every single day or every single minute, if you want, go and look at this database, go and look at your state laws, go and look at what's new that's in the House of Representatives in your state, the legislature in your state. Look what's coming down the pipes, warn me if something happens or something gets passed in the House of Legislatures and so on, and then integrate that into my decision processes within AI, right? So a lot of the complexity of this is to be proactive in this as opposed to be reactive. Once you get sued, it's nothing you ever want. But if you're proactive in it, design it in such a way that AI can, the beauty of AI is that you can say, look at point A through Z in all these different aspects and then integrate all that information and give it to me in a tangible way. The legal dimension is just one of those various applications. Tell your AI to continuously look at what's my competitors doing, what's happening in this market, what could I learn from another country, what they're doing, right? You can tell it so many different things and AI will go do that work for you to integrate that information. But being protective and being able to think systemically about how various environmental factors will impact the business, that's going to be the key on how you develop your own AI.
Agreed.
I would just
go ahead, James.
I would just take a picture of this coming from the opposite direction. If you have the intellectual property and you're looking to protect your property from other people, that's actually, going back to Barry's comment, exactly what you've got to do as well, is you've got to create your own AI. What we've learned at Soar in working with many of our partners, if you don't have an AI module or AI content regarding, with your intellectual property, then it's already out there. I mean, ChatGPT already has it, but if you don't have a way of marketing that yourself through AI, then there's no conflict. There's no copyright infringement because you don't have a way of marketing that yourself. So to Barry's point, you've got to create your own AI content and module in order to be able to enforce that copyright for your own intellectual property. So kind of looking at that same question, but from the opposite direction as well.
Great answers, guys. And I hope that really helps, Sharon. And thank you once again for your question. So I've got a different one now. And I want to bring us back to using AI strategically within the organization. And we've talked about quite a number of the key departments. from HR to leadership, but we've also got sales and marketing, right? And we've also got production, and we've also got quite a number of other areas depending upon the nature of the underlying business. What would you guys suggest as being key KPIs and performance indicators that organizations should be focused on in order to get the impact they're looking for from AI?
I'd love to. I'd love to have a good, easy answer for that, Thomas. Yeah,
Well, stick with an area that you rather than trying to cover it all, focus on an area that you'd like to start with.
yeah. So, sales, which is kind of my background, when you're looking at KPIs there, the first thing that you have to do is it has to be measurable. So if it's going to be an indicator, it's got to be able to be measured. And so we look at, things like, sales dollars is kind of at the top line, but how many calls are we doing in order to make each of those dollars? And so when you're looking at AI, and are we making things better? Are we, what's the time for the sale from initial contact till close? Are we shortening that period of time from initial contact to close? Are we increasing revenue per call? Are we those are the kind of indicators that we're going to want to look at. Is number one, is it measurable? And then they're already usually existing KPIs, and so we're just looking at, when we implement AI, are we moving the needle on those? So it's not necessarily even that we have to go out and create a whole bunch of new indicators. It's really just knowing what our current indicators are, implementing AI, and then looking at, are we moving the needle on those?
Yeah, when it comes to sales and marketing, the bigger picture, if you will, might be customer experience, which takes in both, because it relies on both. And most of those inputs are now digitally oriented, rather than some of the old traditional methodologies with emails and such. So there is a great role for AI to play in terms of creating what we call customer experience through inbound. And most customers today are not waiting for the phone to ring. They've already found out anything they need to know online, right? So our objective is to make sure that we're online in front of them, and that process is measurable by the way that you've stated. The nice thing about digital is there's nothing that isn't measurable with
Right.
respect to that. So when you align AI against that and those kinds of databases, and when you're doing digital marketing and you're creating all of that inbound traffic and people really querying on the topics that you've aligned with your business model, now you can measure things that have a real impact on sales. When it comes to security, compliance, IT, and those areas, Barry, what would you say would be some KPIs that would be critical in those areas?
Well, I'd make the statement that my focus would actually be on the internal side in the employee category.
Okay.
And it's entirely because of the data. And when you look at sales and the customer, that's all external data for the most part. So there's a whole different set of regulations and requirements that most of those are changing far more rapidly than what would happen on the internal side. But if you look at employee data and team data, supply chain data, all of that is pretty much owned data, right? You have rights to do stuff with that. So the KPI that I would look for on the internal side is really around employee happiness and effectiveness. That if you go through and you chew away the 10% of the things that your entire workforce doesn't enjoy doing, it creates an area of optimization for the organization, but it also uplifts the entire organization from an entire cultural perspective to move to the next step.
And that's you just hit on something that I think is one of the key elements, and that is employee happiness and employee participation and productivity on that basis. And I think AI brings an enormous opportunity in that regard. And I think that many times we forget that and we focus in on the ROI and just the efficiency part of it. But I think that productivity and employee happiness can be measured, and it can be seen by way of their activities and where they focus and where they're having fun and enjoying their jobs. And I think there's a huge opportunity there. Ted, what would you say to that?
Yeah, that's definitely the one of the main areas that I work in quite a bit. The key is we have to get people out of the once a year employee engagement surveys. That's a load of crap. Every company is doing it, and what's the ROI on that? They're paying some consulting firm. I won't mention any names. I've seen a lot of these companies pay up to $500,000, $1 million for employee engagement surveys once a year, and they report on this data. But the data is so at the top level. Oh, my employee is happy. No, okay, what do? I have no idea. Right? They may be able to break down the demographics. With AI, you can be so much more proactive at this. So, like, there's other metrics that you can go into explore. So, let's take efficiency, for example. Right? Efficiency in the manufacturing world, it's relatively simple. It's how long do you take to make a gadget? Efficiency in the human world gets a little bit more creative. You still need the human innovation side to say, if I want to measure efficiency, how long does it take me to write a report? How long does it take me to do task X? And how do I reduce that time to take to do that task X? There's so many micro level measurements that you can help people become more free in their time. And everybody will work towards this because at the end of the day, I want to work less hours and make the same amount of money and achieve more, right? So I can spend more time with my family, what I want. If I teach my people how to be more efficient, there's tangible ways to measure that, but that requires AI to help you with it so that people can become more effective. Other aspects like, we talk about innovation all the time. Innovation, where we have innovative company. Well, I always ask the executives, how many innovations do you have per month, per department? What's your ideas per employee? And people don't measure that stuff. Everybody wants to be innovative. Well, how many innovations do you have per month, right? And getting that to that level of taking that idea from ideation perspective all the way to innovation perspective, there's got to be a lot of metrics in the middle. So there has to be leading metrics as well as lagging metrics. So the employee happiness and all that is lagging metrics. The leading metrics is ideas per employee per week, which you go to the manager level is how many ideas am I collecting from my team per week, right? So there's a lot of different parts and pieces you can use AI, leverage AI to break the stuff down, but there has to be a system framework around the whole thing. Okay. Another quick one that I want to mention is, we're kind of playing around with integrity quite a bit. Most organizations have their organizational value as we have integrity in the organization. Well, we've built an integrity index that looks at people's commitments versus what they follow through with, and then we measure that based on the different analytics that we use to help people understand, am I really driving integrity index above 90%? And that is a very clear KPI to let people know, are people doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are they showing up on time? Are they completing projects on time, on budget, and so on? So there's a lot of different parts and pieces that you can kind of look at when you get to leverage a lot of technology that's out there.
And that gets to something that is so critical and such a hot topic, and yet, from what I see, isn't actually put into play, and that's leadership and management style, right? And we've certainly moved from a perspective of understanding that autocratic management styles are not effective, right? And that a team environment needs to be created. I think we all agree with that, and yet I still don't see a lot of those ideas penetrating in many of the organizations that we work with. And let me ask you this: is there a method by which AI can play a role in supporting those management and leadership styles with respect to the meetings and the organizational communication that they have today?
Yes, definitely. So the biggest lagging part is there's a lot of executive development courses and certificates you can get, but the training and the application, there's a huge gap. There's no accountability training. If I learn something, what am I going to apply to? And how am I being measured based on what I learned? So one of the first things that we've kind of finished developing is assessing your actual skill sets. So as a leader, if I'm facilitating a meeting or I'm micromanaging people in a meeting, the AI system can easily tell you what's my skill level, what are the most important ones that I need to have, what is my skill level from 1 to 10, and what do I need to do to develop that particular skill. So AI can come in and hold your hand in developing it. Where we look at most executives leadership, they all have an individual development plan. Most of the development plans are driven by some overarching human bias perspective, and there's no accountability structure behind it. AI can step in and say, oh, here's the different skill sets, and here's the sources of skills, and here's where you're at today. And by next month, here's where you can progress to if you do this, this, this. So it starts giving people a handhold in moving them forward and developing their key skills, as opposed to take a course. Oh, I have no idea what course you took, and you paid the money, you got a certificate, great. Everybody has, I always joke with organizations that have employee transcripts for leadership development.
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
okay, do they have the skills? Well, I don't know. Well, let's assess them. Here's a tool for it. This is where AI can come in, analyze the meeting transcript, analyze the conversations, and say, oh, here's where the skills actually at, and here's how they're progressing. And then we go back to the employee happiness and engagement. Then we can tie, well, your employees are happy because they're doing this, this, this in these meetings, right? And there's tons of research around how meetings are unproductive. I think the last one I saw was that 71% of meetings are unproductive. Takes too long, people talk too much, and people hate it, right? If you get rid of that and solve that problem alone, then you may have more productive employees because they can actually spend less time in meetings and do a job. But AI can easily go in and be that individual development mentor for you so that it's completely objective, assess your skill sets, and develop the skills you need so that all the theoretical concepts of what team, what innovation can be, can actually be created in reality.
100%. And coming back to what you said earlier, by the way, just full circle, when you were talking about innovation and allowing people to be comfortable with bringing forth those innovative ideas, right?
Yes.
That's the environment that you want to create in order to have that actually happen and become measurable. James, what would you say would be a great way to do that? And what do you think about the idea of AI playing a role in supporting leadership, whether it be in sales and marketing or whether it be in executive management, HR, or any area of the business?
Well, Thomas, that's our entire focus here at Soar is using AI to do exactly what you're talking about. So obviously I'm very positive towards it, and that's what we do. So, creating AI as a means of follow-up and that tool to give you the feedback, whether it's training that you've taken and now are we actually implementing it? Companies spend billions of dollars on training every year. And then where's the follow-up? What's the indicator that shows that we're actually implementing the concepts that we were taught? And so AI is an incredible tool to be able to do that, whether that's in meetings that you're analyzing or those one-on-one interactions between leaders and the people that they lead. AI has incredible functionality to be able to look at those interactions and then give you the feedback. Are we improving? Are we getting better? Or are we just wasting money on training that no one is taking advantage of and actually implementing?
Excellent. So we talked earlier, and we're coming to the top of the hour, so I want to wrap this up with a success story. So we talked earlier about a bit of a not so great story with respect to, in that example, Air Canada. Can you guys think of, and I leave it to you, and I've got one, but if you guys have one better or one that comes top of mind, a great success story with respect to really productive use of AI in recent months?
Sure, I'll go. So, the specific example that I mentioned earlier, leveraging AI to go through all the documentation that in your entire hiring process. We took a very rigid hiring process, your typical hiring process, right? Post a job, get resumes, cover letters. Somebody has to read it with human eyes, go through an interview, and so on. We've streamlined that to become a hiring system. So the system is there to help you eliminate the human eyes necessary to go through hundreds of resumes. It pulls down to the ones that you want to talk to, then go to assessing the skills from the resume using AI, then go into looking at the interview. Most people do Zoom interview these days, which is great. Then you can transcribe everything, analyze the data on that interview set, and then take that interview meeting, analyze the data set, compare it with your resume and so forth, and then find the right hire. But in the same time, in this system, the system was always getting better and better, right? So if we look at any kind of systems thinking, there has to be feedback loops for your hiring people to get better at their skills. So it's also coaching the people that are doing the interviews. How am I improving their skill sets? How are they, using better open-ended questions? How are they selling the company as opposed to, well, I'm the interviewer, I'm looking for the right candidate, but at the same time, they have to be conscious. I'm also selling the company. If I make an offer, what's my percentage of people that will actually accept the job because I did a good job of interviewing and selling the company in that time frame, right? So it's got to be both ways. So there's a coaching element that makes the people that are doing the hiring much better. So putting that whole system in place has been extremely powerful aspect to getting the right people, developing your people in HR, doing their job, as well as the managers doing the interviews, and creating a hiring system that continues to get better and better.
That's an excellent example, and thank you so much. Barry, I'd like to give you an opportunity with respect to a success story that you can think of, because I know you delve into some of the deep, dark places. Have you seen some successful stories as well?
I mean, the most successful things that I've seen are really in the startup and innovation space for community entrepreneurship and people who may have been affected by a layoff or reduction in force. AI has completely changed the game for the number of startup organizations that are basically coming to fruition, actually becoming real businesses because of the AI tools that are available. So I don't have any one example to point at, but if I were to choose an industry as an example, the entrepreneurial category is the industry I would choose.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, guys, this has been so much fun, and we've had an excellent conversation. And we talked, and that's what I wanted to do today, was to kind of talk at that 30,000 foot level, and we definitely did that. And what we want to do going forward, as our series and our conversations continue, is to start to dig deeper into some of the areas separately, so we can really dig out both the issues as well as the opportunities. So I really want to thank everybody for taking the time today in joining us, and I especially want to thank our panelists, Dr. Ted Soon, James Tippetts, and of course, Barry Hurd. So thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful, and everybody, please have a great weekend.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.